I think. Hello, everyone. Sorry, I was waiting for the camera to say that we're live, and we are live now. It is Sunday once again. It's my favorite day of the week. Because being chatting to drummers is just one of the most amazing things ever. So, it's now gone 2 p.m. in the UK, which means it's 9 o'clock in Manila. I hope that some of my dear friends there in the Philippines are joining us live today. So, welcome to another episode of Ask the Drummer. I'm really excited about this week's episode because I think I tried getting him on the show, but I thought he wouldn't say yes to it. I didn't think he'd say yes to Ask the Drummer, but he finally did. I think it took a bit of meeting him several times in Glasgow, seeing him in pubs and the jazz show and things like that. But he's here finally. He finally agreed to do Ask the Drummer. So, my dear friends, please welcome Brian Price. Yay! Or Archie.
Yeah, whatever. Whatever you want to call me, just as long as it's not too rude.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm fine, yeah, absolutely great. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I mean, before we came on live, you were
Yeah.
telling me about going to see that you went to see Edgar Jones.
Yeah. Last Friday, a place called Broadcast in Glasgow. It's a shame. It was quite a sparse crowd, not very many there, but everybody was just so up for it, so enthusiastic, just sort of like whooping, hollering, cheering every song, like it was the Rolling Stones or something. And Edgar and the guys, it was on top form, just really brilliant, sort of very Northern Soul influenced sound that they have now, stripped right back to a 3-piece, but fantastic, a really great gig.
Yeah, and even though there weren't that many people there, I mean, Jerry Love was there, you said to me.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw Jerry lurking at the back, sitting near the bar with a couple of other guys, but so I figured you should have been there.
I know. I wish I'd gone to Glasgow last Friday. I mean, I would have loved to see Edgar Jones and Jerry Love in one room. One of those missed opportunities, but like what my husband always says, I couldn't go to.
No, you can't go every week to Glasgow as much as you would like to. You have to give a rest every now and again.
That's right. Well, I'm gonna say that I haven't got a tech support at the moment because my husband is a bit poorly, so I hope he feels better soon. So, and I hope that we won't have any technical issues today. But last time I saw, the guest announcement post that I did, I said that the last time I saw you was at the Glad Cafe.
Yeah.
But it wasn't actually. It was at McCool's.
Oh yeah. I'll pop up to you briefly. Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, you stopped by at McCool's to see Jerry Love's DJ set. That
was good. Yeah, I didn't see much of what Jerry played that night, but it sounded really good. Real good sort of soulful vibe. But I was otherwise engaged. I had to go and see the Pop Guns that night, so I went out to see them, which was good.
I wanted to go and see the Pop Guns as well that evening, but I was just really tired. And I thought I'd probably miss it anyways. It was it was that late, and then having to go to from McCool's to the Hug and Pint. I thought I wouldn't make it, so I just stayed.
Don't blame you.
Yeah, but anyways, right, we heard it was awesome anyway, so it was hopefully, hopefully I'll catch the Pop Guns someday. But anyways, welcome to Ask the Drummer.
Thank you.
Episode 98 is all about you, Brian Price. So first thing I wanted to ask you is, because I was all a bit confused when I met you with the Flatmates. I thought you were actually from Bristol.
Oh, you thought I was from Bristol? No.
So you're born in Glasgow.
Yeah. I was born in Glasgow, but left at a very young age. My mum and dad moved down south, so I moved to the sort of Nottingham, Derbyshire border. As a teenager, I went to school there. Started playing in my first bands there as well, and then from there I went to Edinburgh to uni, then to Devon, then from Devon to Bristol, and I loved Bristol, so I stayed there for about 20 years. And then a couple of
Oh,
years ago, decided it was time to come home.
yeah. Well, so how long were you in Glasgow before you moved to Derbyshire?
It's
'Cause-
13 years. I moved as a 13-year-old. So I had two older brothers, but
yeah,
they were like 21 and 23 at the time. So they both stayed. They were old enough to stay, but I was too young. I had to go with the parents. It'd been a little 13-year-old stroppy, 13-year-old teenager. So I moved to Derbyshire, went to high school there, and met some of the guys that, as I say, were in the sort of primitive bands that were in
yeah, yeah.
the time.
So are you from a musical family?
Well, one of my brothers is musical. The other one, they both love music. Mum and dad not really musical at all.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
from an early age, I always remember like waking up. My brothers talk about it as well. Like waking up on a Sunday morning and just the radio. You know, the smell of mum cooking breakfast, smell of bacon and eggs and stuff, and sounds like the radio tuned to like some kind of 1960s type, 50s, 60s type station that played, stuff like the Drifters and Motown and things. So from an
yeah,
early age, I remember listening to that was the kind of stuff I listened to. My dad had a few records, but it was stuff like Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra, Slim Whitman, the crooners, all that kind of.
yeah.
So they weren't particularly musical, but my middle brother Mark was always he was a musical one. He played guitar, played various things, sang, went busking as a teenager with a big troop of buskers in Glasgow, and I kind of learned a trade from him really, and listening
Yeah.
to his record. He was listening to a lot of like kind of new wave, big massive Elvis Costello fan, Blondie, Talking Heads, new wave stuff, and he introduced me to Friends Again because I know you're a big Friends Again fan because he actually his first job, it's not really a job, it was one of these things that Margaret Thatcher in her wisdom brought in to try and cut the unemployment figures by putting people into youth opportunity schemes. I think they were called YOPs for short, where they paid the people a pittance to go and do something so that it got them off the unemployment register and got the figures down artificially. So he joined some kind of drama collective, which James Grant was in, and Blythe Duff, who was an actress, famous actress in Taggart. Harry Travers from Hipsway was in it as well at some point because his drum kit was actually the first drum kit I ever played on, aged about 11, because that this touring little sort of company of actors and musicians brought a show to my primary school, and my brother promised me that he said at the end of it, Harry's going to let you play on his drum kit. So I got to, for the very first time, I'd sat and watched Top of the Pops and watched Clem Burke religiously every time Blondie were on and mimicked. So I knew how to do it, but I just had never physically done it. I could sit and mime it, with my hands on knitting needles or whatever, and like pretty much every other drummer, hit whatever I could find in the house, and that was my drum kit. But the very very first actual drum kit I played on was Harry Travers from Hipsway.
Wow. So you were so like, you've heard of people doing air guitar and things. So you were doing air drumming or something.
Yeah. Just basically sitting on a chair, putting Parallel Lines, like Parallel Lines album. I could do it I could name you every fill and everything Clem Burke does on that record because I sat there as a child and mimed so many times, So I knew I had to do that and had to do this, and then I had to go around the kit like that, but not quite as fast as Clem could do it, or as do things with his sticks and his fingers. But I kind of learned how to play drums really by watching Pete Thomas. Elvis Costello in Attractions, Woody from Madness, John Bradbury from Specials. They were like my favourite drummers. So just kind of watching them on telly whenever they were on, and then sitting in the bedroom with the records on, just miming it or hitting whatever I could find. So
Well,
that's my education.
during this time, like James Grant from
Mm.
Friends Again. Oh my god!
Well,
So were they already famous by this time? Were
no,
they?
no. They must just have been gone because basically I've got to hold these up to you as well because
Yeah,
that's the actual copy that James Grant gave it to my brother. And then it found its way into my record collection somehow because I just loved it. But you can see, I'll take it out the sleeve. You can
the
see,
Honey at the Core.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, the original Honey at the Core. You can see how
yeah,
black the sleeve is. It's like it's falling apart. The record's falling out of it. So I had to
yeah,
go and obviously buy myself another better copy of it at some point later down the line. But that
yeah.
literally was given to my brother by Jim Grant when they worked on
Whoa.
this thing. So I think Friends Again obviously must have been starting at that time, and obviously we're going because that record came out while my brother was still in this thing. So I think it was 82, 83. So I'd have been 10, going on 11. My brother's 17, 18. On this youth opportunity scheme with all these people.
Yeah, that's just incredible. I mean, it's like I've actually found a copy of Honey at the
Yeah.
Core, all signed by all five
Wow,
members.
wow, wow. Yeah. Mine's not signed, but it was given to the family. But
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get it signed myself because normally I wouldn't buy things that have already been signed, but
yeah,
it's just that I
you just
thought I can't. Yeah, I've got
you
to
can't,
have this.
you can't let that one pass by. No, not at all.
Yeah. So they were just starting at the time, and that
Yeah,
must have been really exciting. And Harry Travers from Hipsway as
yeah,
well.
yeah. I didn't really know anything about either band at the time. I was only like 11, and my little circle of friends, we were all heavily into like Madness specials, the Beat. I had
Yeah,
many aunts. So, we would go down on a Saturday to local shopping centre in Pollock, and that's where we would buy our singles. Like we'd take our pocket money down and 50p, we'd get the latest two-tone single or latest
yeah,
Academy Ants or something like that, Altered Images, that kind of thing. But I didn't really, obviously, things like Hipsway I didn't really know about them. Friends Again certainly, weren't in the charts or anything. They were obviously just a new band
yeah,
at the time. So that's where I kind of learned about these bands, and it was generally through my brother would bring records in. My oldest brother, the non-musical one, he was more into like heavy metal, classic rock, that kind of thing. So I
oh,
was
yeah,
I
yeah.
was less excited about his than I was about my middle brother. So the middle brother was the one that I always kind of went to. It's his.
Yeah, yeah. They used to like wanting to get his collection instead of the heavy
The older
metal.
ones. But funny enough, later in life, though, I kind of acknowledge now what my older brother was playing. At the time, I hated it. It was like Sabbath and Thin Lizzy and Deep Purple, Michael
Oh,
Schenker Group,
yeah.
stuff like that. But I can see with the benefit of hindsight and an older head on, I can appreciate some of the stuff that he was playing. Not all of it, but some of it.
Yeah,
Whereas
someone.
at the time, aged 11, no, it was the devil's music for him.
Has he got sort of like Venom? There's a band called Venom because yesterday I was working at King B and
Yeah.
I actually saw this record sleeve by a band called Venom and I thought, God, this is just really so too much.
Hair and stuff, yeah. I don't remember that. Other ones I remember: Saxon, UFO, Twisted Sister, things like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I actually like Twisted Sisters.
Did you?
Yeah. Because
Well,
they did the version of Leader of the Pack, and that's the
oh,
real
right.
one.
Okay. That's acceptable. That's
Yeah.
acceptable.
But well, talk about Friends Again. I mean, I know that you're gonna go and see the Bathers,
Yeah,
which
next
is
week. Yeah.
Chris Thompson from
Oh, wow.
Friends Again. So
Yeah.
that's next week. I mean, that's another gig that I wish I could go to, but it's the start of the Suit Dragons tour. So
You're otherwise engaged. Yeah.
yeah. I will sort of like go and see them again because they're
Yeah.
absolutely amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
Chris Thompson is just so
Yeah.
brilliant.
What a
But
voice. Yeah.
anyway, yeah. So Harry Travers.
Mhm.
So did you get any drumming lessons from him?
I didn't get no. It was literally
No?
they came once they basically they had this theatre organisation, and they would tour schools. They would go around Glasgow playing, and they would do shows, and probably did grown-up shows as well, which I obviously didn't go to because I was too young. But for some reason, I don't know how it came about, but they organised a show at our school. So they came, did this show, and then there was a musical band element of it. So the band were there and the actors were on stage. So when it all finished and everybody went home and they were packing down, they just let me just go and play the drums. So it was like, as I say, I'd never played a kit before, but I knew what I was supposed to be doing. So I just kind of started playing like Climber, because a few people like, how's he know how to do that? Yeah. So
did you have any proper drumming lessons, or
I did a little while after that when I went. So I was still at primary school at that stage. That stage, so I would have been about 10 then. And then when I went to secondary school, just before we moved down south, so I was at secondary school in Glasgow for about a year and a half before we moved down south, and I had the opportunity to take some lessons there. So I began, but it wasn't really playing a kit. It was like, starting at the very, very basics with a pad, like a little pad, and learning.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Learning, learning the theory of it. So I wasn't that excited about that. I just wanted to sit behind it and knock 7 shades of, the drums. I don't want to sit there with a little pad. So I didn't really get on. And then they tried to put you on to like doing like tuned percussion, so like doing like xylophones and stuff and timpanis and things. In hindsight, I should have stuck with it, and it would have been great, and I would have learned a hell of a lot more. But I was like a stroppy, not quite teenager, but I just wanted to batter the drums as loud and as hard and as fast as I could, and I didn't want to fanny about with a practice pad or timpanis.
Well, did you not ask your parents to sort of like get you a drum kit, or maybe your brothers?
It wasn't an option. We again, like I think a lot of I know you spoke to David from the Bluebells and stuff. Our upbringing was quite poor. It's like we lived in a really, really poor part of Glasgow. There was no spare money around for anything. My brother, he borrowed the most basic of guitars off people, and eventually got his own at some point. But it was just it was a kind of week to week existence. There were some days when my mum barely had any money to buy any food for us to go and eat. So there was certainly no chance of me ever getting it. It was make do with whatever you could find. So it was like an old kids toy drum with a dog lead on it. So we put like a metal dog lead on it, so it sounded vaguely like a snare drum. And then I had a little tambourine, which was my cymbals and my hi-hat. And then my tom-toms were with some canisters. We had paraffin. I think they're out. Well, they're certainly outlawed now. Back in those days, to heat the house, there was no central heating. It was like we had paraffin heaters. So a van would come around once a week. We would buy canisters of paraffin to heat the house with these heaters. And then when the containers were empty, I would wash them out and then fill them with different sort of levels of water. So that one that had the least amount of water would be boom, and then the one that had more would be boom. So that was my tom-toms. So I'd spread these around the bed and then just hit them along again, playing along to records. So that was my progression from sitting miming records, like literally just like that, air drumming, to actually hitting things and trying to get measured sounds out of them, that sounded as much like a drum kit as possible. So that was it really. I never actually owned a kit until later on when I lived down in England. And it was one of my teachers gave it to me. It was like when I started high school, when we moved to Nottingham, sort of Derby area. There was a music department, and one of the teachers, she would put on shows, and the drama teacher, Mrs. Outram, is still friends with me on Facebook. I hope she's watching. So she actually she managed to get me my first kit because we borrowed a kit off a friend of hers to do one of the shows, one of the school plays, and then at the end of it, I think it was pretty battered old kit. It was hodgepodge thing. It was different bits of different drum kits. So it wasn't one proper kit, really. It was just all sorts of bits. And she, I think she must have told the guy whose kit it was that, look, this kid wants to play drums, but he's got no chance of ever getting a drum kit or anything. So they gave me this drum kit. I had to go and ask my mum if she would allow it into the house, and thankfully she did. And so that was my first kit. So it was given to me.
That's amazing. So what's your teacher's name? Sorry.
It's Mrs. Outram, Maureen Outram. So she's
like, thank you, Mrs.
Thank you, Mrs. Outram. Yeah, for that, and thanks for encouraging me. And her and Mrs. Bolt, I think it was Annabelle Bolt, was the music teacher, so they really encouraged me to do, to sit and play and go for it. Even though you haven't got the instrument at home, or just play it whenever you can, and come and do these shows. And then I remember Maureen, she left our school, went to another school, and then she would bring me and some others in from at the school that I went to go and play in the shows at the other school. So that was a good little outlet of just going and just, there's all stuff like Bugsy Malone, Grease, Calamity Jane, things like that. So it was we did Little Shop of Horrors. That was brilliant. That was a great show to drum in, because more rock and roll than something else.
I think that must have been because my daughter, I mean, she's had proper drumming lessons. She's had the distinctions and all these sort of degrees and but she started drumming for the school plays and all that.
That's exactly what I did. That so the first shows I would ever have done would have been those, and I think I did an assembly as well. I don't know if this was before we did the first show that I played in, the first school play, but basically there was an assembly happening. And we must have been practicing for the shows or something, because these two little kids who were a year younger than me, a guy called Simon and a guy called Ian, I think it was, they played bass and drums, and they said, "We're doing an assembly. Will you play drums for us?" I was like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, what songs are we doing? And it was we did 3 songs. We did "The Chain" by Fleetwood Mac. We did one song that they had written themselves, and then we did "Wipeout." The Safaris,
Animal, the Muppet Show, Animals. He did that "Wipeout."
Yeah. So we did that in a school assembly, like in one morning. Just battered them out, and that was great. So I think that was possibly my first ever performance, and then in the school plays would have rolled on from that, I think, after that.
Yeah. And that's actually where you met your first bandmates, the first band that you actually joined or formed.
Strictly no, because the first band I was in was a band called Space Rats, great name. who became the Millers, but initially there was Space Rat. But these two guys, there were two brothers, Giles and Steve Woodward. They incidentally do a fantastic podcast. If anybody's likes listening to podcasts and listening to middle-aged men talking about songs that they wrote and recorded 30 odd years ago, which nobody really heard. It's a great. It doesn't sound great, but it's one of the best. It's really funny. It's really, really good. It's called This Are Johnny Domino, and Johnny Domino was a future band, but we're getting ahead of ourselves there. So these two brothers, they lived in a nearby town, a place called Ilkeston, which is just up the road from where I lived in Sandacre. And I think the way that I met them was a couple of my mates from my school went to a college 2 days a week. So they got out of school two afternoons a week to go and study different things at a local sixth form college. And they met Giles there, found out Giles was in a band, and the band with his brother and another guy, but they had a drum machine, and they'd been looking for a drummer apparently, but couldn't find one. So they kind of put my name forward, and somehow I went to the college. I can't remember how I got there or why I was there, and we managed to get into a studio just with me playing the drums, just to show them that you can play drums. We didn't ever rehearse. They didn't have their instruments with them, but we just had the opportunity to go into a studio, and then I just kind of battled away at the drums, and they were like, will you be in our band? And I was like, yeah, of course, yeah. That was the first band I was in, a band called Space Rat. So it was not the kids at my school, but another school.
Another school. So they're not from your sort of like, because they didn't see you performing at your school, but you
No,
actually
no,
went to a different
no,
school.
no,
So
no, they wouldn't have
yeah,
seen any of that. Yeah, they were at a different school,
yeah,
different
yeah,
4 or 5 miles up the road, different
yeah,
little town. But
yeah,
see, the only thing they saw were one member, I think, or maybe the singer was there, or maybe Giles and the singer were there. They came into this studio that I'd been allowed to go into just to show them that I could play
yeah,
drums.
yeah.
That
Well,
was
on your Facebook page, I actually saw someone posted. It must be one of the brothers who posted a cassette tape of Space Rats.
Oh, that was me. Yeah, no, I posted that because I found it. I was talking to Steve about something else the other
Yeah,
day, and I found those cassettes. So I posted them up just to sort of remind them of it. So we
so
did.
what happened? Are those like demo tapes that you
No,
sent
no, no, no.
to?
Just literally just recorded in the practice room, which was my bedroom. Because thankfully, when I was given that drum kit that I was given by Mrs.
Yeah,
Hodgson, at that time we lived in a flat above a cafe, which had no neighbours anywhere sort of near it. So we were, the back room backed onto like a railway yard. It was
yeah,
all
yeah,
quite industrial, so there was no neighbours around.
yeah. It's
So,
a perfect place for practicing.
and my mum and dad, bless them, long deceased now, but bless them, they were very very tolerant, and they just let me go for it. And then
Yeah,
they let Space Rat rehearse in my bedroom. So we basically rehearsed in my bedroom at full volume. So mum and dad they either went out, or my mum would be at the bingo, my dad would maybe be in, but he'd just basically go in the front room and just turn the telly up so he could hear the telly above us. But they were very very tolerant, and they put up with a lot.
practicing in your room and with the yeah,
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 so the Space Rat stuff was just literally on a tape recorder, an old-fashioned sort of little tape, just press play. So it was very distorted, didn't sound particularly great, but it was okay. And but we started gigging just locally. Basically, we're underage. Giles was perhaps maybe he was 17, 18. Steve and I would have been 15 at the time, and Andy and Giles were like a year or two older. So yeah, but basically we've managed to persuade the landlord of a local working men's club in Sandacre, which is now demolished. It was called the Alexandra Club. We managed to persuade this guy to let us play in his function room. So basically, our audience was just our friends from my school, and Giles and Steve's friends from their school.
yeah,
They were just
yeah,
all underage coming into this working men's club, and just it was just. I think Steve and Giles talk about it on this is our Johnny Domino podcast. They sort of said basically Space Rat was a vehicle to encourage underage drinking and kids getting to basically cop off with each other. So yeah, so that was kind of our existence. It was a short-lived band. I left it. I left after a while. Various sort of things.
yeah, yeah. But then
They, they,
Space Rat actually turned into another sort of like
they did,
band.
yeah, initially, but before that, when I left, the other three carried on under a different name and got the drum machine back in again. They did that for a little while. Then Stephen Giles got fed up with that, gave that up, and then by this time we were all attending the same college. So we'd moved out, so we'd left school, and we're all at the
Okay.
same sixth form college. So Steve and I were in the same year. Giles a couple of years above, or maybe he'd just left college. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
We decided to reform Space Rat without the original singer, and we were called the Millers, and Giles became the singer. So that was
All right.
kind of my first proper. But Space Rat, don't really consider that as a proper band. That was just a kind of fun school
A practice or
yeah,
like
on the practice room. So the Millers was kind of we took that a little bit more seriously, and then we went and recorded some proper demos in a proper studio, and began to get some attention from a label called Wild Club. I don't know if you remember them, based in Norwich. A chap called Barry Newman ran it. Yeah, so it was like bands like Catherine Wheel,
yeah, yeah.
Bardos, I think were on it. Trying to think who else. Sun Charms. You must know Sun
Oh
Charms.
really?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
the Spectrum. Okay, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
they were on. He started to show a little bit of interest in the demos that we'd recorded, and
Yeah.
he took invited us down to Norwich. We went down there. This would have been about 92, no, maybe 91, 92. I think we recorded 2 lots of demos. He liked them, said, come down, play a gig. Let's have a look at you. So we played Norwich Arts Centre, a couple of bands, and then went home. And then he said, yeah, I'd like to do something with you. Gave us a load of money, put us in a studio in Great Yarmouth in the middle of winter, out of season, Great Yarmouth. I think it was November, very, very bleak.
Yeah.
But by this time, we'd expanded Millers into a 4-piece. Giles, Steve had switched from bass to guitar. Giles just concentrated on singing, and we brought in a bassist, a guy called John, who was in another band that I had also. Peru. So Peru kind of ran alongside the Millers. The Millers was kind of noisy, sort of grungy type but quite grungy, quite noisy, quite angry, aggressive-y type sort of band, you know.
I suppose being young, because you were all young,
like
teenagers at the time, so you it must be the type of music that you really wanted to do, so like angry or angst and the teenage angst and things.
That was it. Yeah, and we kind of listened to a lot of that stuff. Stephen Giles especially, they introduced me to a lot of the harder edge, the Mudhoneys, you know, the Fugazis, Big Black, bands like that. They were into that, but as well as being into that, they were also into like the Velvet Underground, Codeine, Cocktail Twins, you know, all sorts of stuff. Big 4AD fans, Steve especially. So they introduced me to a lot of that kind of stuff. At the same time, I was listening to a lot of like Sarah record stuff, a lot of Jangle Pop, a lot of the stuff from like obscure American labels like Bus Stop, Harriet, Shine label from Australia, you know, all those kind of things. So I was heavily into that. So as a side project to the Millers, I started Peru with a couple of guys. One guy who was at school with me, a guy called Chris, and then this other guy, John, who was from another school. So we started off Peru, and then John found his way into the Millers as a bass player when Giles and Steve kind of switched roles. So back to the Millers. Yeah, Barry threw a lot of money out of us. Went to Great Yarmouth. We slept in the studio for a week and just recorded an album's worth of stuff, which is absolutely terrible. It's dreadful. It's pretty much unlistenable. Again, Steve and Giles talk about this in the podcast. We really messed it up. We'd never been in a proper studio before. We did the demos, but that was just the 3 of us, and we were tighter then, I think, as a 3-piece because we practiced so much together and rehearsed. And then we recorded these demos, and there's something good in the demos, and I think Steve has allowed those to be online under a Miller's Bandcamp page, but under no circumstances will the album stuff or the subsequent EP, which we went back to Great Yarmouth to record. But I think it was slightly better than the first effort. But it was a mess. We just really messed it up. We didn't really know what we were doing either. Too young and too inexperienced. But subsequently, I was in touch with Barry, but Barry in the end didn't release any of it. He intended to, but for various reasons, I think he wound the label down, and this was supposed to go on a sub label, so it wasn't going to be on Wild Club. It was going to be on a sub, sister label that he was introducing. A bit noisy. I think it was called Jawbone Records. He was going to call it. I think it was after the Fall song Jawbone and the Hair Rifle, but. Various reasons, Barry, I think he had some health issues and stuff and wound the labels down, and it never got released, and we just stopped.
That album, the Millers album, never got released. It's available on Bandcamp though, isn't it?
No. There's Stephen Giles. Under no circumstances will they put it on there. The demos are fine. We're happy enough for people to hear what we were doing before we went and messed these recordings up spectacularly. So they'll never see the light of day. We all have a CDR copy, CDR copy over there somewhere.
That's amazing, actually. That sort of like CD display is just absolutely amazing.
But if you're really desperate one day, I'll maybe play you a bit of a track. It's pretty rough.
Yeah, well, before we continue, Aiden said, but Aiden is, my husband,
Yeah,
my
yeah,
tech
yeah.
support. He's actually listening. So even though he's a bit
Hi, Aidan.
poorly, he said, great sound and vision, great conversation. And
Oh,
Thomas, oh,
so,
something. I can't.
that's yeah, that's Tom Ahern. So that's I think the Irish spelling of
Alright.
his name.
I'm
Um,
sorry about that. I'm not
yeah,
very good. So like, I
just call
saw
him
the
Tom.
name.
Just
I
call him
saw the
Tom.
name. I was sort of like thinking, okay, Thomas. Oh, so
Yeah.
I can't pronounce it. I'm sorry, Thomas. But yeah, so after the Millers, oh no, it's not after the Millers. You're actually doing an extra project, which is Peru, while
Yeah.
you're
Well,
still in the Millers.
yeah, that's
So
right.
you've got like two
So
bands going at the time.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But Peru was just initially started just for a laugh, yeah. And instantly, Thomas, who just messaged you there, or whose name you couldn't pronounce, he was in the later version of Peru in Bristol when I
Oh,
reformed it. So,
sorry.
so
Oh, sorry.
he was the guitarist, but he just spells his name. If you look at the records, his name's spelled differently on the records, but it's the same chap.
I'm
But
sorry
yeah,
about
going back to that. So
I just
basically,
thought like, is he here?
yeah, Thomas,
Oh yeah, Thomas
Ahern, yeah,
Ahern. Oh my god, I'm so
yeah,
sorry. Yes, I've got the records. It says Thomas Ahern. Sorry.
yeah. That's yeah. The spelling he uses now is the proper Irish spelling of
All
his
right,
name.
okay. Sorry about that. So, but the Millers didn't get anything released. But
No.
with Peru,
Mhm.
you've actually got like singles and is an album. Is there an album as
Yeah,
well
there's a
released?
compilation. Yeah, a compilation of
Compilation album,
a
yeah, yeah.
lot of the sort of early recordings that we did. Chris McFarlane, Jigsaw Records over in the States, he kindly agreed to put that out, and
Yeah.
that was the thing which triggered the Bristol version of Peru, because we wanted to get going again, because
Yeah.
this album was coming out and do some shows. But going back to the start of it, at the same time as the Millers, as I say, the Millers was at the harder edged side of things, and then I wanted to do something that was more like the other side of what I was listening to, the softer side, the
Yeah. The
jangle
Sarah
stuff.
records, so like
Yeah,
indie pop kind of thing.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So we sitting in a pub one day, I think, and talking to my friend Chris, and John may or may not be there, but we just said, why don't we just start a band that sounds basically sounded like Brighter, like most bands that want to be a Sarah band sound like Brighter, with a bit of field mice in it as well. But basically, he said, let's do it. But I said, look, if we do it, I don't want to play drums because I play drums in the Millers. I want to do something else. So Chris wasn't a musician at all. He just said, "Well, I'll learn bass. I'll play bass." And John said, "Right,
Yeah.
well, I'll play guitar because he could play guitar." I was like,
Yeah.
"Right." I was like, "Right, I'll sing then." Never sung in my life. Never done it before. Never had any intention to do it. But I never thought it would get beyond the stage of talking about it in the pub. But then we just decided to do it. So we just started.
Yeah.
I mean, I played acoustic guitar. I'd never played guitar before in my life. So John taught me about three
Yeah.
chords. No, John taught me about three chords, and I just practiced on an old battered acoustic guitar, and
Yeah.
then we just started to write songs. I wrote some that sounded basically they were just ripping off Brighter. Basically, John wrote some that were a little bit different because he didn't really come from that background. He knew of some of these bands, but he came from like a
Yeah.
different background. So his songs were a little bit different. And then we kind of merged the two of them together. And then we just started to record them on like a battered sort of 4-track system that
Yeah.
he had. And then he brought in a friend of his called Zoe. So she joined on keyboards. So it became a 4-piece. And again, I never really intended it to go any further than the bedroom, and just us recording these little songs, very, very basic, naive songs onto the track, and just for our entertainment and as an outlet for me to do something completely different from what I was doing in the Millers. That's what it was supposed to be. And with hindsight, that's what it should have stayed that way, I think.
No,
But
I've got to say, I mean, I got these two singles. That Sent to Salt Coats is just
yeah.
absolutely amazing.
Well, that's much later in the period. So the period I'm talking about at the minute, is 1992, and then we started to play live. We did a few live shows, but I was just absolutely terrified because I couldn't really play guitar and I couldn't sing. And I'd never done it. I'd never done it live before either. So I was terrified. I tried to hide it through bravado and sheer, being a macho. I'm a musician, sort of thing, but just we were terrible. We should, as I say, we should never have left the bedroom. But then I think it was Richards, a guy called Richards, who ran the Wah label. There was a label, a very cute C86 label called Wah. It was like
yeah. I have seen that. Yeah.
So he got in touch saying, I'd like to put a split single out with a band called Mary Queen of Scots. I was like, right, okay, yeah, great, yeah. So we got in touch with Mary Queen of Scots, a guy called Chris Lamb, and he kindly lent us his 4-track machine, which was one that worked rather than one that we had, which didn't. So we borrowed that 4-track, and we got Steve from the Millers to play a bit of guitar. So he kind of joined Peru. He didn't really join Peru, but he was always a periphery figure. So he recorded the track. He recorded tracks for that single, and he played guitar on them as well. And he also, one of the live gigs that we did, Chris was on holiday in France, so Steve stepped in and played bass. So he did perform with Peru. But so that single came out in about 1993, I think it was. It was very, very lo-fi sounding because we just basically did it almost live to a 4-track machine, so there's not much depth in it or anything, but it's a good little document, and that was the first thing that we ever put out. And then Miller Weller, a German label, put a little cassette thing out, and then we're always cropping up on these little compilation tapes, and I was putting my own compilation tapes out as well through a fanzine that I did at the time, and that was just basically an excuse to try and get us exposure and get our stuff moving around the world, which it did. So it worked a treat, as these things do, just word of mouth and people swapping fanzines, swapping tapes. And then we got an offer from Shelf Life Records if they asked if we would put a track on one of their, I think it was the first compilation CD. So we did that. Then after that, I moved away. So I went up to Scotland to university. The Millers had fizzled out by this point. And then Peru kind of fizzled out because I moved away to university and everybody was living, and John was living in Manchester, I think, and Chris was still in Derbyshire. So we were all over the place, really. But
okay, yeah. Because I was like thinking that maybe was that the band that made you so like famous in Bristol? Was it Peru? But then you said that you actually moved away. You went to
So I moved to Edinburgh first and foremost. So I think it was about 95. I also post the Millers, excuse me, and before I moved to university, I joined another Derby band called not Whitetown. I wasn't in Whitetown. It was called Boy Scout, but everybody else who was in Boy Scout had been in Whitetown at various times, as had pretty much every musician in Derby, apart from me. I think everybody else had
Whitetown, the woman.
Your woman, yeah. So they. Yeah, they started off as a very, very C86y and jangly indie band. Well, not totally jangly, but a little bit harder edged. But I first saw them, actually, they supported Primal Scream at the Dial when Primal Scream were in their kind of like heavy metal second album, Ivy phase. So Whitetown supported them. I got to speak to them and interview them and for the fanzine and chat to them. And then I think they also supported the Orchids. When the Orchids first played Derby, so that would have been the first time I ever saw the Orchids. So this is about 91, 92. James will maybe know, or Chris Quinn will certainly know the date. And Whitetown supported them then as well. So it was basically Jyoti, the Asian guy, who put the number one single out. He basically, by that point, he was on his own. But between 91 and that single going to number one, which I think was 97, various different lineups of Whitetown.
Massive.
Pretty much everyone I ever played in a band with had played in Whitetown at some point, I think. So the band was called Boy Scout. So we did the rounds a little bit in Derby. We never released anything, but we were quite a good band, quite a tight band, and we started to get some attention from Mother Records, which was owned by Bono. So they gave us some money to go and do some demos, which we did. And then this is my introduction to the horrific thing that is the A&R man in the music business. Because obviously the Millers had never seen any of that. Peru certainly had never seen any of that. But Boy Scout,
Boy Scout, yeah.
Yeah, we started to get followed by some A&R guys who would come to see us regularly at gigs. Then they started to come to see us regularly at rehearsals, which we all just thought was just totally surreal because it was just us four youngish guys. But well, this time we're in our 20s by now, but just rehearsing in a studio in Derby, and they would come, and then there was one guy consistently came. Then he brought another guy with him a couple of times, and then I just vividly remember this one rehearsal that we had. So we're just playing, and I'm drumming away at the back. The guys are in front of me, and these two guys are just like sliding against the back of the wall, just getting really into the music, but just almost sliding up and down the back wall that they were standing on. And I'm like, what the is this? what are we getting involved in here? What is this all about? What is actually happening here? So I think there was drugs involved, certainly not with the bands, but certainly with the A&R guys certainly seemed to be quite fueled on something that particular evening. So this continued for a while, and then we did some demos, and then eventually it was just like it just abruptly stopped. As quickly as it started, it just stopped. The interest stopped. So I think I don't really know why, but they courted us for quite a period of time. And I think we were kind of Britpop-ish band. We were certainly more Britpop. We were certainly nowhere near where the Millers were in terms of noise and grunge. We were nowhere near where Peru. We were somewhere like kind of Britpop-ish. And, but this time it was 94, 95, so the very, very tail end of Britpop. So that's probably why it ended. We were just probably slightly too late. We were maybe 2 years too late doing what we were doing then.
So it would have been really good because Mother Records, I mean, that's like big, you know. It's
I mean, Long Pigs were the big sort of band on that label at the time. And I don't know if it was their studios. We went up to Sheffield to record the demos. I remember that, but I don't remember the name of the studios. And I remember that was probably that was my third time in a studio. So for first time would have been the Millers demos where we were allowed to just do what we want. Then second time was the
Boy Scout.
The second one was the aborted Miller stuff in Great Yarmouth, where we were again kind of allowed to do what we want, but we were being told certain things would sound good, and we're doing that, we're doing it that way. But I remember the Boy Scout recordings, we were really being pushed. You know, it was like people telling you, no, you're doing that again, and you're doing it better, and you and the bassist are going to do that again, and you're going to do it in tight this time, not loose. We're like, what? Again, never experienced any of that, but it was good because it really, it's what it should be like. I think it should impart some discipline into you, and they certainly did that. And the demos were good. I mean, I liked the songs, and I liked the songs that we were playing, but it fizzled. It just stopped, and I think we were just slightly, on the tail end of something, and we were just slightly too late for it. So that ended.
So you never got signed to Mother Records?
No? Never got signed. No, we did those demos. That was it, and then Boy Scout kind of ended because I at that point again I moved to Edinburgh to go to university. So Peru kind of fizzled out at that point. Boy Scout, I tried to carry it on from Edinburgh. I travelled down a few times. We did some gigs, and then after about a year, it was I can't do this anymore. You're going to have to get somebody else. So they got another guy in to play drums, and I kind of stopped playing really in Edinburgh. I just stopped doing anything. Occasionally I'd come back down to Derbyshire, and me and Steve would get together and record some stuff, but it wasn't Peru as it was. It was just kind of like, I've got an idea, or I've got a song or two. We've got an afternoon, let's just go and record them as quickly as possible and just get them on tape. So that was it really. And then so from then, which was about 96-ish, I didn't really do anything until I moved to Bristol, which was 2000. I moved to Bristol in 2002. Again, didn't really do anything for a number of years, but started to go to, there was like a nice little C86 festival type thing, a little pop fest that was put on by a couple of people in Bristol, Matthew and Heather, ran an event called, it was Big Pink Cake. So they had a label, I think it was named after the Razor Cuts song. So the label was Big Pink Cake, the night was Big Pink Cake. So they would just either have DJs just playing indie pop and sort of bit 60s and stuff, and occasionally they'd have bands as well. And then once a year, they'd have like a pop fest. They'd invite European bands over, and bands were coming down from Glasgow and stuff. Those bands like Felt Tips, I think it was. Wake the President, they were a great band. Probably before I don't know if you know them. A couple of brothers, Swedish twin brothers, sort of half Swedish, half Glaswegian. They were a fantastic band. So these kind of bands would come to Bristol, and the more I was watching it, I was thinking, you know what, I'd really like to do that again or something like that.
But you were already known in Bristol by that time, because you were there, you were living there, and also you were doing like fanzines that people sort of like get to know your name there in Bristol.
The fanzines, that was more Derbyshire. That was when I lived in Derbyshire. So in Bristol, the benefit of Bristol is it's a small city, compact city, and if anybody's doing anything or C86 or Northern Soul related, it seemed to be the same people. You would bump into the same people everywhere you went, the same gigs you went, same soul nights, the same gigs, the same indie nights. So I got to know people from there, and Rocker from the Flatmates was just one of those people you would just see everywhere. And you would go to a pop fest or like a soul night in Sheffield or Nottingham, and Rocker would be there. He's like, he was just a bit like you. He was like everywhere. Everywhere you went, he always seemed to be there. So
before we actually go talk about the Flatmates, David Chambers, who's the drummer of in other bands in Preston as well. He said that, funnily enough, Mother Records did the same thing.
Oh, to them,
friend of his band. So so it's good that David's joining us. Hello, David. But anyways, so before we talk about the Flatmates, I saw on your Facebook page that someone called Stuart Tudor Chapman.
Oh yeah.
Of the Kensingtons. Now I don't really know about that band, but of course I have to sort of like Google Google Kensingtons, because he said if the Kensingtons were ever to have a drummer, I would wish it to be Brian Price, which is
that's very nice. Very, very kind words. Yeah, it's just a lovely guy. I think they were based down in Taunton, and it was like at the time of doing fanzines back in Derbyshire, Peru were just getting going. So every compilation tape that we seemed to be on, the Kensingtons were always on it as well, or the same fanzines. The names always kind of crossed. And his music's brilliant. Inner City Baby, if you get to hear that.
I actually looked it up on YouTube, and there's one song called Intercity Baby 94.
Yeah.
That's absolutely amazing. So I think I am going to sort like, check them out more. I believe he's in Australia now.
No, I think he's back home. He moved to Australia. He lived there for a number of years, but I think he's back now.
Oh, is he back? Okay.
But he did come back to do a one-off Kensington show in London, which was again around about the time that Peru was starting to get back going again in Bristol. So I went to London to see him. So that was the first time I actually met him. We'd written to each other countless times. We'd swapped tapes, swapped fanzines. We knew of each other. But I actually met him the first time. It must have been 2010. And what you might also notice in a lot of the a lot of the Flatmates photographs that are kicking about, I'm wearing a Kensington's t-shirt. It's one that's got the British Rail sort of symbol on it. That's a Kensington's t-shirt, which I think I don't know if I bought it or if he gave it to me.
That's probably the first time it actually clicked when I heard, because I thought I've heard of that name before.
Yeah, it might have been from that shirt. Yeah,
it's probably from that one. So now we're going to talk about the Flatmates, because the Flatmates, they were formed in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And but then they this is according to Wikipedia, that they disbanded in 1989.
I think following an onstage fight, which is not very C86, not very indie pop, but apparently I wasn't there. I'm going by what people are telling me. Obviously, like when I was doing fanzines and stuff, I knew of the band. I had the records and stuff, but I'd never ever thought I'd ever be in a band like
Yeah.
that. It just by chance, really. So I was in Bristol, knew Rocker. Obviously, everywhere I went, Rocker was there, and everywhere anybody went, Rocker was there.
Yeah. And
If he wasn't DJing, he was playing in a band or
yeah.
keyboards, or he was putting the night on, or he was doing the sound, or he was
Yeah.
providing the PA. He was, he literally he was everywhere.
He's everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, according to Wikipedia, he's the original drummer of the Flatmates.
He is, yeah. So the initial lineup was him, Martin on guitar. They had a couple of different bassists, I think, and then Deb was the singer, and then Tim Rippington, who was in 5 Year Plan, who have just put out actually a brand new 5 Year Plan record very recently, and he's also
Yeah.
in various other bands. He joined as an extra guitarist. Rocker left and was replaced by another drummer called Joe. And that was the lineup that kind of did the later Flatmates singles. And then it culminated with a gig with Martin and Tim having a fight on stage.
Oh,
And that was the end. I think that was the end of the Flatmates at that point.
yeah. But
So,
then Martin, what was it? Whitehead? Martin
yeah,
Whitehead, um, reformed the Flatmates in 2013, and that's when you joined.
yeah.
You joined the band. So how did you get into it? I know that you said that you know Rocker and you've been sort of like seeing him a lot.
Yeah.
But was it through him that got
Yeah.
you the job as a drummer?
Yeah, it was through Rocker. Rocker said obviously he was switching to keyboards because the songs are fast and furious, and Rocker I think felt he wasn't up to playing them at that speed. I think, and he just wasn't up to playing drums really. So he's going to switch to keyboards. But he played keyboards in the Rose Hips after he left the Flatmates. So he's he's a good musician anyway. So
yeah.
so he was going to play keyboards. Obviously Martin was there. They were trying to persuade Deb, the original singer, to get back involved, but she just didn't really want to get involved at all. So they drafted Lisa in as a replacement singer. So I think Martin always never saw it as a reformation. He just saw it as a kind of Flatmates that had moved on. It's like a different version of the Flatmates that had moved on to the time. He'd been writing songs and demos and stuff for a long time. So Rocker gave me some of the demos to listen to, and said I'll speak to Martin about possibility of drumming. So I think they had other options that we're looking at as well. And then we went and met Martin, sat and that's literally the first time I'd ever met Martin. Again, I'd corresponded with him years and years previously through the fanzine. He'd sent me his fanzine and some records that he'd put out under I think it was Shrimp Tractor. It was a band that he'd formed after the Flatmates. They put a few singles out around about 1991 too. So I got those sent to me when I was doing the fanzine. We corresponded then, but had never met. So we went and sat, met Martin, had a chat and stuff, and then got I can't remember how it happened, but just Rocker said, yeah, you're in. You play drums, yeah. So it's like, oh, great, fantastic. So I hadn't played drums since I left Boy Scout in
since Boy Scout, and then you
95. So this was like a good 18 years, maybe. I'd literally hadn't really played drums. So thankfully,
Rocker is always a drummer, isn't it? It's like riding a bike,
just like my sort of main worry was sort of fitness, and because the songs are fast, and I think they got even faster once I got involved as well. But, I was like, so I listened to the demos, and again I sat in the house and just thought, right, okay, I kind of know what I'm doing. Rocker thankfully has his own studio in his house, and a drum kit in there. So I was able to go around, stick headphones on, just listen to the demos and play along with them, and then just gradually get fitness back and get up to speed. So that's just how it began. And then we drafted in a bassist called Verity, and that was us. We were kind of ready to go, started rehearsing, and Rocker arranged some gigs. So it was a Bristol gig, a London gig, and then the third gig that we did was at the Edge of the Sea, the Wedding Presents festival that they do once a year. So we went down and played that. So that was it, and that was us back up and running again. So
yeah. And then in 2017, I mean, this is that year when you're the drummer of the Flatmates. That's
Hmm.
where I first saw you.
Yeah,
That's
that's my
where I
first
met
met.
you
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in Manchester at the White Hotel.
Freezing.
Which was like,
This the merest mention of it, you hear it crop up quite a lot in Six Music. So the DJs in Six Music also, oh, there's something happening at the White Hotel. I'll be there. The merest mention of that, yeah, I can feel it now. Like I'm starting to shiver. I get goosebumps. Like it was. I
it's a
just.
lot better now, you know. I mean, the last time I went there to see House of All,
Uh-huh.
I was actually surprised myself because that place, that venue is actually really, really good. I mean,
Yeah.
nowadays it's not as cold as it was
No,
that
I think it was in its sort of early days. I think when we played it, it hadn't long been opened as a venue. I just, what was it? Was it an old car mechanics?
I don't know. I don't know. It's not definitely not a hotel.
It was definitely not a hotel by any stretch of the imagination. But I think I seem to remember there being like a pit, where almost where you would have a car, a mechanic would get in to get under the car. I'm sure there was something like that in it. So,
Well,
I
the
just
one
remember.
I remember about is like the bar. I mean, if you can call that a bar.
Oh, was there a bar? I don't even remember. Was it just a table with some cans on it and a white cloth or something like that?
But anyways, that's where I saw you, and
Yeah, yeah,
that's the first time I saw the Flatmates as well. And I remember, I still remember this because I asked for a photograph. And I
yeah.
think it was Rocco who said, "Oh, so now they're asking you. So now the fans want photos with the drummer." It was like
Yeah.
I didn't know at the time that he was actually
He
the
was the
original
previous
drummer.
drummer. Yeah. I think there was some other things like that happened at Morocco. I was like, how does he always get people photographing with him? But and I remember as well.
I'm gonna say, I was at the time, I was so like, I don't know if it was the cold, but I thought you were a bit so like strict or aloof. Because I didn't realize that maybe you didn't feel you didn't feel the gig at all because of the cold. So like,
No,
in
no,
that,
I enjoyed. I quite enjoyed that gig, but that was actually I think the last tour I did with the Flatmates.
oh, I
So
see.
yeah, that gig was a good gig. I remember that. I remember I can't remember the name of the band, but the band who opened, it was like some really young kids, like just Rickenbacker, right? Everybody seemed to be playing a Rickenbacker. They were great. They were absolutely fantastic. I can't for the life of me remember the name of them.
Yeah,
I
but
think,
again,
yeah.
from your Facebook page,
Uh,
I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Matthias Lidihol?
Matthias, yeah.
Matthias? Oh, Matthias. Okay, Matthias Lidihol. He actually commented on your page that he considers himself lucky to have experienced the pure joy that is playing with
Oh,
you.
oh,
And
very
he
nice.
said that you're his favorite co-musician
Oh,
ever. So,
I,
and he's the
well,
bassist. He's the bassist of
and,
the
and
Flatmates.
he's married to the singer, so I wonder what she thinks of that.
Oh,
If I'm his favorite. I'm sure she'll have something. Lisa will have something to say about that. I think, but no, that's really kind. That's really really nice words. And he was a joy to play with as well because we had a revolving door of bass players. So we started with Verity, then we had Katie for a little bit, and then Becky came on tour to France with us, and then Katie might have played again with us, and then Matthias started to fall, and then he just became the regular bassman. So I think we built a bit of a relationship up, and it's always like drummers and bassists are always going to, if you don't fit, then the band's not. It's like you did that quote Bobby Gillespie said, "Band's only as good as its drummer" or something like that.
yeah.
But if
Which actually came from Joe Strummer. I
right,
found out that it was a Joe Strummer quote.
Yeah. But I think if your bassist and your drummer aren't in sync, yeah, you're screwed as well. And I take that back to the Millers demos as well that I talked about earlier with me and Steve. We were pretty much like that. We at one point on the Millers demos there's a song called The Tree, which really speeds up and then just really gradually slows down.
Yeah.
And we didn't play to any click tracks or anything like that. It was all just like having practiced it so many times. We each kind of knew how we were going to and what level, what degree we were going to slow it down to, and it just fit like a glove, and
Yeah.
he I think Steve, lots of musicians. I've played with a lot of musicians. Steve is incredibly talented. Played bass guitar. He was, great at piano. He could pretty much play anything, do anything. Thomas Ahern was a fantastic guitarist. And in that later period of Peru, he was incredible. He was an absolutely incredible musician, and
Yeah.
an absolute delight to play with as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I have noticed that every time when I go to gigs, that the bass player and the drummer, they always seem to sort of like look at each other and
Yeah.
so, like, you can tell that they're sort of like signaling each other. So like,
Yeah, get that. But to be fair, when you get to the level that like me and Matthias were like, or me and Steve were like, you didn't really need to even look at them. It's like you just knew and you could trust them. Trust
yeah.
well. It's a little bit of that, but with those two, you could just I could wander away and sit and just close my eyes and just get lost in what I was doing and trust that they too were going to know exactly what they were doing as well, and it was going to work.
It's amazing when drummers, because last week I went to see the Telescopes, and the drummer was so like had his eyes closed.
Yeah,
and I was sort of like looking at him. It was like, God, how does he even know where to hit?
Yeah. There's things I've done that, and I think there's one Flatmates video somewhere where I'm kind of a bit like that, and I go to hit a cymbal to completely miss it. Just like expect this crash, and there's nothing because I just miss it. I was like, that's because I was just kind of locked away in my own sort of little world. But I was talking when we're.
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, no, I was gonna ask. This is about. I don't know if you're comfortable answering this, but can I just ask you why you left?
Why I left the Flatmates? Yeah, I just, as I said, that tour was the last one for me. We'd done a few, and I think it was just, I felt it was getting towards the end of where it could go. I couldn't really see it going any further, really. And they delayed the album. They sat on the album because basically I recorded the drum tracks for the Flatmates album were pretty much done by me when I started in the band in about 2013. Went back and did a couple of them again because I didn't feel that comfortable with them. Some of the songs were written a little bit later, so they were recorded later. But the bulk of that record, I did the drums for in 2013, and then everything was pieced together gradually from different places. So it was a very, very piecemeal album. We went all in the studio at the same time. So it was almost like a lockdown record. And then they delayed the release of it. So it should have came out long before it did. And then just as they were about to bring it out, or just as they brought it out, lockdown hit. So they couldn't tour it. And by that point, I think I'd just had enough, really. That Manchester gig was great. We did one before it in Newport, which nobody was there. You think, well, why have we bothered doing that? We did one in Newcastle, which was really, really good. We just did one in London after that, which was absolutely terrible. It was just the pits for a number of reasons. And it was, I think at that point, I just thought, I don't want to do this anymore. And then there was one more show to do in Bristol. We did that. That was really, really good.
Yeah.
So in that tour, I think half the tour was good, half of it was terrible. And I just thought, I don't want to do that again. I don't see the audiences picking up or getting any bigger. So I don't see where the band is going. So I just felt the time for me to step back was then. Obviously, they've gone back onto it. Post-lockdown, obviously, the chance to reinvigorate it again and get back out and actually tour the album. So they've done that with Jamie, who I think you've seen the last time you were in Manchester. So Jamie,
I saw them again at the Talleyrand in Manchester. Yeah.
So he stepped into the shoes. So they're in good hands. I had a great time. We went to the States, which is amazing. I never thought I'd ever do as a musician. So we played in the States. We did quite a few little European jaunts and stuff, again, which was fantastic. But just as the subsequent tours went on in the UK, I just thought it's shrinking. Everything's getting minimalised. The venues are getting smaller. The audiences are not growing. They won't grow because we haven't put the records on hold. So I think that was that was the end of it for me, really.
But were you still in Bristol at the time?
Well, in Bristol, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing as well was when I started in the Flatmates, I was in a different job to what I'm in now. I'm a postman now, as you know. So when I started in the Flatmates, I was still working for British Transport Police, and it's quite easy to get time off
Oh,
and book time off. Then I wasn't a police officer; I was backstage, sort of in the background.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
it was quite easy to get time off. So if Rocky would suddenly say, "Oh, we've been invited to go and play Berlin," or "We've got, we've done 2 dates in France or whatever, or 4 dates in France," is
yeah,
everybody okay for it? I could go to my boss and book that time off. In Royal Mail, it's completely different. You have to book your holidays pretty much a year ahead of when you want to take them. So that was going to cause problems as well. Whereas I couldn't just turn around to the boss and say, "Oh, yeah, band's going on tour in September. Can I just take 2 weeks off?" Because they'd be like, "No, absolutely not. That's just not a chance." So there was a bit of that as well. So I could see that causing difficulties, and the other things I've explained previously were just led me to think, no, I need to leave this now.
yeah.
Somebody else can do it. So
But
that's
you
that.
didn't like leave though, because I don't know if this other band that you were in called Lonely Tourist
Oh
or something
yeah,
like Bloom Feathers.
yeah.
Was it after you were in the Flatmates, or is it
I,
during the time that you were in the
yeah,
Flatmates?
it was all pretty much during running around about the same time. So I met
Oh,
Paul. Yeah, Lonely Tourist and Plymouth Fellas was kind of the same band, but basically Paul Tierney, another incredible songwriter, incredible musician, incredible
yeah.
storyteller. He's another Glaswegian who'd moved to Bristol, and I met him at one of these big Pink Cake weekenders I was talking about. Peru played at it. That was
Oh,
Peru's kind of,
yeah, yeah.
that was Peru's first gig in the new version of Peru, which included Tom and Jim and Alex. So we played a big Pink Cake weekend. Paul played it as well that weekend, I think on a different day. And that was the first time I'd met him. Tom had met him before. He'd seen him play before, and he said, "You've got to see this guy. He's absolutely incredible." So I saw him, and he was absolutely just playing on his own, just very very fast, furious sort of singer songwriter songs. And then again, we bump into him quite a lot in Bristol. We would go and see him whenever he played because he was great. And
Yeah.
then when he put his albums were more kind of like he'd recorded them with his friend Jim Lang in Glasgow, and Jim would put all the kind of extra musician bits on top of Paul's guitar playing and Paul's singing. So Paul then, when he launched the albums that were coming out, he wanted to put a band together. So he basically took Peru without me. So he took the Bristol version of Peru. So he took Alex, Jim, and Tom as his backing band. So they became the Lonely Tourist band for I think the first and maybe the second album launch. And then by about album 3, Tom had moved. He'd gone to Sweden. He moved to Sweden. So it was Jim, Alex, and a guy called Chris Webb. And then for the next album, Paul decided he wanted to have 2 drummers. Paul's a
Oh,
massive, big, huge Fall fan, and I think
okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
this idea that Marky Smith could have 2 drummers, I could have 2 drummers. So we didn't have 2 full kits. So Alex played full kit, and then I played a kind of little hodgepodge kind of thing. So I was kind of adding bits and doing shakers and just sort of enhancing bits and just a
yeah.
little bit different. So we did that for a while. And then Paul changed tack again for various reasons and stripped the band back to just me playing drums, Chris Webb playing guitar, and a bassist, a guy called Jim. But
Yeah.
he wouldn't do that every Lonely Tourist gig. It would be like mostly he'd be playing on his own. Sometimes he'd do it as a duo with him and Chris, just 2 guitarists, 2 vocals. And then every now and again he'd get the 4 of us together and we'd do it as Lonely Tourist band, sort of full band.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
then out of that, he and Chris wrote a kind of. He hates to call it concept album, but it is a concept album. So Plymouth Fellas is a concept band, and the album called Plymouth Fellas is a concept album about pubs and the death of pubs and the decline of pubs and pubs that were continually being turned into flats and gentrification and all that kind of thing. So he wrote a whole series of songs, him and Chris together. that documented life, what pubs used to be like, characters in pubs, some characters he'd met, some he'd invented, and then and various pubs closing down and things like that, and getting a landlord to talk about his experiences. And we put that together. But when we played that live, we did it
Yeah.
to a film. Paul's partner, Stephanie, incredibly talented artist and graphic designer, she sort of did a series of animated films, each one to go with each song. So we had to learn to be quite disciplined with that and play in time to the way that the images were going. You know, we didn't do it with clicks, we didn't do it with any headphones or anything like that. We just did it through watching it, to the extent where the first gig we played, the screen was behind me. So the rest of the band members were either side so that they could see the screen. And then the audience were pretty much right in front of me, in front of the bass drum, you know, going backwards. So the only way I could see the screen was we had to position a mirror down by the bass drum so that I could look in the mirror to see what was going on behind me. So we did that for the first one, and then we rehearsed it a few times, and then we got to the stage where we can almost get it right without doing that. So
Yeah.
we never did it like with the mirror again, but we just learned to play to the almost like an exact tempo, so that we were in time. Sometimes you got it slightly out, but we allowed for, like, you know, just kind of like letting something linger at the end, you know, with a little cymbal washing something, or just delaying a start, you know, till Stephanie clicked the next film in, you know. So we got to do it pretty well. And I remember we took it to Scotland. We did it. We played Edinburgh and we played Glasgow. Played the Glad Cafe, and Chris and Keith and Paul Quinn, possibly Paul Quinn, or was he at the Flatmates gig? But certainly Chris and Ronnie. I think maybe Chris, Ronnie, and Keith came to see it. So asked them what they thought about the films. But no, it was all.
This is like going like you were doing Flatmates, and then you were also doing Plume of Feathers.
Yeah, Plume of Feathers and Lonely Tourist. Yeah, so it was all at the same time. So we just and occasionally we played together. You know, the Flatmates would get Paul to support. You know, and we'd do it as a band or whatever. And sometimes Paul would just do it solo. So Paul's played with the Flatmates quite a few times, and played with us in France as well. He also came over to France and did a little festival with us over there. So it was all interlinked. And then sometimes we did a couple of Lonely Tourist and Plume of Feathers together. You know, so Plume of Feathers supporting Lonely Tourist or vice versa. Which is basically the same band coming on twice. So I think we maybe switched bass, a different bass player for Plume of Feathers and Lonely Tourist at that point. But yeah.
So when did you sort of like stop Plume of Feathers? Because you left in 2017. You left the Flatmates in 2017. So how long were you in Plume of Feathers?
Plume of Feathers. It only had a short lifespan because it was one thing. It was the concept, one album. So it was never meant to be like a long-term thing. So we did it quite a few times, but then it's okay, right? We've done it now. People have seen it. People have seen the films, so we can't really do it unless Paul and Chris suddenly turn around and write another Plume of Feathers album.
What about Lonely Tourist? Were you in Lonely Tourist as well?
Only when Paul needed me, only when he wanted to put like a full band together. So as I say, most of the time he would play on his own. So maybe 70% just Paul, another 20% him and Chris together, and then 10% it would be like, you know,
the full band.
Yeah. So again, I wasn't really a member. You know, Lonely Tourist is a solo act. Anyway, so Paul is Lonely Tourist. That's his.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
That's his alter ego. He started off just on his own, then he expanded it a bit, and then so he kind of he just picks and chooses what he wants to do and how he wants to do it. But latterly, I think it's been him and Chris again doing some solo shows.
Oh, I see. So when was the last time you played drums?
Last time I played drums? It was
2017?
2017 or thereabouts. Yeah, maybe did something with Lonely Tourist or Plume of Feathers after the last flat. So 17, 18, something like that.
Yeah. And then you moved back to Glasgow. What year did you move back from Bristol to Glasgow? What year was that?
That was 2 years ago, so 2021. So
I see.
Summer 21. So
I didn't realize it wasn't that long ago. So you stayed in Bristol.
Stayed in Bristol, yes.
So stayed in sort of like Bristol music scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
but just wasn't really doing anything. Yeah, I was still there, still going to see bands, still seeing the same people, same faces. Going to see Paul play solo or with Chris quite a lot. Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but yeah, just didn't really do anything else musically myself.
Right.
Other than we still did some more Peru recordings. Obviously, the Peru singles came out a little bit before that. The singles that you held up earlier, they were like 20, sort of 11, 12.
2014, I think.
13,
2014.
yeah, something like that.
12. Yeah.
And then we put like a download single out as well. Tom and I did some other demos and recorded, but we never really finished them. So there is some Peru material knocking about that never got released. So maybe one day it
Yeah.
will see the light of day. I'm not quite sure. But so yeah, I kind of stopped doing stuff again, and then just moved back to just say time was right for various reasons to move back to Glasgow, and then came back in 2021.
Yeah. Well, again on your Facebook page, someone called Graham Charlton said that
Oh,
you're a
yeah,
DJ. So were you
no,
doing you're
no.
doing a DJ thing in Bristol or in Glasgow?
Oh, this was in Bristol. So again, running at the same. I've just realised my laptop was going to run out of charge there, so I got.
Barefoot, so like charge
I,
it.
yeah, I'd accidentally pulled the plug out, so I've put it back in. Is it? Yeah, that's fine. So yeah, again, excuse me. So at the same time, I'm doing Plymouth Feathers, Lonely Tourist, Flatmates. Some friends of mine and some neighbours, Bob and Kelly. They opened a brewery called Good Chemistry, and then in their warehouse, they started to do events and
Yeah.
open days and weekend events and stuff. So I just said, look, can I come and play some records? I'm not a DJ. I go and I literally go and play records. So I went and did that as well. So
So yeah, because he
I
said that you
wasn't DJing. I was just playing records. Yeah.
well, he said that you spin some mean discs, so top man
Uh,
he said. So but what
excellent.
sort of like genre? What
It was
genre were you playing? Were you so like
everything. Yeah, cause
okay.
basically you were there from about 12 noon till about 8 or 9 o'clock at night. So
Yeah.
I would literally just take boxes, cases full of records, so covering everything from the 50s rock and roll and R&B, rhythm and blues, northern soul,
Northern
funk,
Soul, yeah.
yeah, 60s beat, and through 70s new wave, punk, 80s stuff. I do little sections, do like a Manchester section as well, stuff like that.
Oh, I
Just
see.
little themes and things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
When I needed a break or needed to go to the loo or anything like that, you put Kraftwerk's Autobahn on and just leave it 23 minutes, and just like Bob and Kelly would regularly bring a fresh beer over every sort of hour or so, or every half hour or something like that. So you were well fueled by the end of it, but it was really good fun. And incidentally, now Paul Lonely Tourist does it now that I'm not there anymore. So he does it.
Oh,
He does it. A friend called Adrian does it. Adrian Britton, and occasionally Kev Mosley. So just friends, again, all friends and stuff. And
yeah, yeah.
Adrian's more of a DJ. He actually is a DJ. Paul just plays records like I play records, and Kev just plays
Oh, I
records.
see.
There's no mixing, no turntable.
No mixing.
You just put a record on, finishes, fade another one in, fade another one. Occasionally you try and get stuff
Yeah.
that match pretty well together. And Bob and
Well,
Kelly
that
also.
was what Jerry Love did when we
Yeah,
saw him at McCool's. He was up putting records on and having another one.
and then just like a tin web with somebody next to you and just talking to somebody. Oh, got to quickly get up. It was really good fun. Really, really enjoyed that. So
Yeah,
don't know, maybe something will crop up Glasgow. I can do that as well.
yeah.
Maybe something will crop up drumming wise. I don't know. That'd be nice.
Because you're currently, you're currently not doing any. You're not in the band.
No,
right
no.
But you do guest spots. like last
I said a guest spot.
guest spot. But this time, I mean, this is really. I've got to say this. It was such a pleasant surprise because.
Yeah.
It was after Glasgow's Pop.
Yeah.
It was sort of like that Sunday after Glasgow's Pop. Barbara Manning sort of did the show in Glasgow.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's brilliant. But then, you were there, and I thought this is gonna be, the Glad Cafe. There's no drum kit. This is gonna be
No.
like acoustic. So I thought, oh, he's probably got a bongo, or he's gonna throw like that, or maybe a cajon. Like that cajon thing, that
Well,
the square thing that you tap. Like drummers. If
oh,
it's
the
an
little
acoustic
box
kit,
thing.
you
Yeah,
sit on
yeah,
it,
yeah,
and then we saw like, yeah.
yeah.
Um, but when I mean, the first surprise was when she called you and she said Archie, and I'm
Yeah,
like, oh God, she got the wrong name. She called out the wrong name. I'm gonna ask her about that later. But
yeah, yeah.
so you came on stage
Hmm.
with Barbara Manning, and you kept it so like well hidden in your pocket.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
pulled out a pair of scissors.
yeah, yeah.
So, but first of all, did you practice it with Barbara Manning before going
No, no, absolutely not. Yeah,
on stage?
somebody else asked me the same thing the other day. Who'd been to the show? She was at the Pop Guns. There was a girl at the Pop Guns. Thing that Brogues introduced me to. She was at that gig. She asked me exactly the same thing. She said, did you rehearse it and stuff? I was like, no, it was completely off the cuff. And she like, I would never have known. You just looked like you knew what you were doing. And I was like, well, just clicking some scissors. But yeah, it's like, so for those people who don't know, Barbara Manning's got a song called "Lately I Keep Scissors." It's on one of our early albums. And it basically does little rhythm track before the drums and everything kick in. So it's like snips of just scissors just clicking. So obviously, a song called "Lately I Keep Scissors," "Kept Nearby," etc. So I woke up that morning and I just thought, basically, I was a massive fan of hers, and going back to like the fanzine days and swapping tapes and stuff. People would send me tapes from the States and from Australia and stuff, and there would always seem to be like a Barbara Manning track here or there. So that's where I first heard her. And then I started to pick up her singles. I'd find them in record shops, and then found some
Yeah,
albums. And I just loved her stuff for, ever since I was like a teenager. So 18, 19, I think probably first heard her 1990, something like that. Just started picking up her stuff through the years. Loved it, absolutely loved it. She never tours, never over here. So I never thought I'd ever see her in my life. Just one of these artists that you just loved and loved listening to her records and her CDs and her
yeah,
stuff, but you never ever see her, never get the chance to see her. And then suddenly, the end of the Glasgow's Pop thing, I started to see some tweets coming up in the announcements saying, "Oh, Barbara Manning and Jerry Love playing day after." And I was like, "What the
glad
actual
stuff.
what?" I was like, how? So I snapped a ticket up as quickly as possible, started messaging the guy who was promoting it, who's Brogues, who I'd never met before, but I now know. But
Yeah,
obviously, lovely guy, brilliant guy. So thankfully, Brogues had put this gig on, and I was telling him how much of a fan I was, and showed him some singles and stuff. And then I just thought, I woke up that morning after the Pop Fest, and Pop Fest, that was amazing, 2 nights,
oh yeah, yeah.
incredible.
Oh,
Just like
so good. Yeah,
filled with so much music, so much talent, so many artists and stuff there. And it was like, just got up the next morning, I just thought, I want to play. And I wonder if Barbara Manning would let me play Scissors. I'm going to practice. I'll put the record on. Thought, just make sure I can do it, and the scissors are not going to break. And. So I had a little practice in the house, and I thought, right, I'll just put them in a bag. I'll take them. I'll take some records as well for it to sign, just to show I'm not some nutcase. And
yeah,
actually, well, I am some nutcase. Some people would say, well, you are some nutcase. But just to show that, I knew who she was, and I'd got her records, and I was a fan of sorts. So I thought, if I get the chance to speak to her, I'll speak to her. And if not, I don't. And I'll ask her, and if she says yeah, great. If she says no, it's not the end of the world. I'm still going to get to see her play, which I never thought I'd do in my life. So it was great. So I got there, sat down. Had a meal with Jerry and Brogues before, so I left her alone for a little while. I didn't instantly go up and sort of question her. So I then went up and just said, look, spoke about the records. I said, would you mind signing them a little bit later on after? She said, of course. And she was going through them. She said, oh my God, I can't believe you got that one. And that one's looked quite right. So it's a nice little way to introduce yourself. And I said, I've got another question that's a little bit slightly more bizarre. And she was like, oh, well, go on. So I was like, are you going to play Scissors tonight? And she was like, yeah, definitely, yeah, that'll be on the set. I was like, well, I've got some scissors with me in my bag. Would you mind if I came up and played? she was like, "Oh my god, yeah, yeah." She thought that would be amazing. Absolutely, I would love that. That would be great. So I was like, "You're right, okay, we're on." So I was like, "Well, do you want to go and have a quick practice or something in the green room at the back of the Glad Cafe?" She was like, "No, don't be silly. No, I'll just call you up. When do you want to play? Beginning, end, middle?" And I was like, "No idea. You know, it's your set. You just tell me. Just tell me when. Just give me a shout and stuff, and I'll come up and do it." So just before she went on, she sort of came up and showed me a set list. Said, "Oh, it's there. It's after this one, so you know when to get ready." I was like, "Right, fine, no problem." And then she started playing, and I just thought, I suddenly started to get fear. I hadn't played. I hadn't played for years. I'm in a room full of like some people I know, some people I
It
don't
was,
know.
it was packed as well. That gig was sold out. Yeah.
I just suddenly thought, what the have I done? I was just like, oh, then I thought, well, there's no going back now. You've agreed to it. So you just need to go and do it. So we did. So got up and played, and it was brilliant. It was so much fun. Just really, really enjoyed it.
It was actually amazing. I was so surprised. I was like, oh my God. And I mean, I'm gonna say that's the first time that I saw you fanboy because I do sort of like do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Sort of like have records and ask the musicians to sort of like sign it.
Yeah.
But that was the first time that I actually saw you with loads of records.
Yeah.
Like Barbara Manning records and asking her to sign every single one.
Yeah. Well, I didn't bring all of them. There's a lot more. No, I only brought the 7-inches. Yeah, I brought all the 7-inches. Which I think was pretty much all of them. But the albums, I didn't want to bring the vinyl records or the album in case I crushed or bent them. The singles keep compact, and I knew they'd be fine in my bag. But I left the others alone. But I just thought that would be a way to introduce myself and then ask her the question about the scissors, rather than just go up to say, "Oh, I like your stuff. Can I play scissors with you tonight, please?" So that's not the way to do it. So
no, that was. I think everybody in that room was so like surprised. I was all like shocked that you've got this scissors going.
Yeah, that's it. And then she surprised me halfway through. Like I don't know if you see the footage of it, she suddenly just goes scissor solo, and I'm just like
scissors.
What? And you literally got a nanosecond to think, what am I going to do? And then I just went double. Instead of just going click, click, I went click, click, just double timed it. So I just thought, there's nothing else I can do. You can't really do a solo.
Amazing. That is so good. Well, one thing I'm going to ask now is like, why did she call you Archie?
She called me Archie because a lot of people know me as Archie as well. And it stems back to Steve from the Millers. Basically, we swapped tapes and stuff. Obviously, he went to university before I did. I went to university a little bit later. I went when I was about 23, but he went when he was 18, whatever, 19. So he went to Sheffield, which thankfully not a million miles away from Derby. So we still kept the band going. We could rehearse. His brother Giles had gone to Leeds by this point. He was at Leeds University. So we weren't a million miles away from each other, and we saw each other regularly. We rehearsed when they were back for holidays and stuff. And then I'd swap tapes with Steve, like, oh, this is what I've heard, this is what somebody sent me, this is what I'm listening to now, and he would do the same. And then one day he just sent a tape, and so instead of addressing it to Brian Price, 30 Derby Road, Sandacre, it was this envelope arrived addressed to the Archdeacon of Pop, 30 Derby Road, Sandacre. I was like, what's this? So Steve, so just because my knowledge of obscure indie at that point was high. It's probably less so now. I don't know any new bands now. Somebody like you who goes to see so many gigs and stuff. You know all these bands now, but the bands back then that I would be talking about were the obscure ones, the very, very underground, very, very low ones. So I was continually taping Steve these bands and trying to get him interested into them. So he just decided I was the Archdeacon. I was then known as the Archdeacon of Pop, and then obviously that got shortened to the Arch or Archie, and then so him and Chris and a few others still regularly call me that. Some other people still call me it. Some people from university call me it, but and then when I started the record label to put the records out, it had to be called the Archdeacon of Pop. So yeah, so that's what.
It wasn't because Barbara Manning already have heard of the Archdeacon of Pop.
No. She just asked me when she agreed to let me play the scissors. She said, "Oh, what's your name?" So instead of saying Brian, I just said Archie. I just said Archie. So that's Brian's a very it's a magic roundabout sort of very boring kind of name anyway. But Archie's a little bit more exciting.
So when is Archie going to be playing the scissors again?
Probably never. I think that will be it. I think that was the one and only opportunity. Yeah. But
I wonder if Jerry Love would ask you to sort of like, oh, can you play the scissors for me?
Yeah, anything, yeah. Whatever I can get my hands on, and as long as we can make it percussive, yeah, that'll be fine. But speaking to Barbara as well afterwards, and subsequently we've been in touch on email and stuff. I think she is hoping to come back to Britain the year after, so 2025. So. Yeah. If there's any way that we can put a band together to back her rather than her play solo, then that might be an option as well. So, you heard it here first.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah, but this time you're going to be playing drums for her, not.
Yeah, I play drums. Yeah. Not just.
Yeah.
We might have to. Yeah, we might have to employ another scissor player. So.
I've got to ask you because at the moment you mentioned that earlier that you're now a postman.
Yeah.
And you enjoy being a postman.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago there was like a flooding, really bad, flooding, and you posted on Facebook that you still had to deliver all these letters and packages to people.
Yeah. We went out with the intention of doing it, and then it just got the area we were in was particularly badly hit. So we got to the point where we could get so far down the road. So we started off delivering, and then my colleague drove the van. You had to go and get one of these customer collections, where you can now get the postman to come and pick your parcel up rather than you going to the post office. So we had to go and get one of those. And I was saying, Paul, this is I was saying it's inaccessible. Look, the water's getting deeper. You could see the cars coming through it. It was getting harder and harder for cars to come through. I said, there's no way you can get to that address because it's cut off. But he drove the van up onto the pavement through these bollards, manoeuvred it right up to the steps of the flat, and still had to wade through some water. But he was determined to go and get the parcel. So fair play to him. He went above and beyond.
Yeah.
And then we just found that we were just wading through increasingly deeper water. So we just looked, this is not healthy. It's not right, So we did what we could, and then we rang the office, and obviously, look, just if it's inaccessible, don't go there. Don't put yourself at risk.
No, of course, yeah.
So we had to abandon that bit. Went a long way round to get to the next bit that we had to get to, and that was almost as bad, but we could deliver to some bits of it that weren't affected. So we just did what we could that day. I think every postie in Glasgow was in pretty much the same position. And then again, this weekend, the north of Scotland's been hit really bad, and in parts of Derbyshire as well now. It's just we've escaped it this weekend, but that was the worst conditions I've ever had to work in. But you get through it, and you do what you have to do. Yeah. But we were within half an hour we were soaked to the skin. The rain was just battering down, and then we were wading through it, and your feet are just soaking. Your socks are. So you had to literally wring my socks out at the end, and my shoes I couldn't wear them for a week. I had to get my.
It's just really wet, and
they just hadn't dried. It took about a week for them to dry, and then I was on a split shift that day as well, so I finished at 2:30, and I had to go back out at 3:30 to a parcel shift till 7.
Oh gosh!
I had to go home and literally peeled my shirt. I was peeling my, my shirt is just stuck to you. I was peeling it off, and then just got in a bath and just lay in a bath and just got warm again, and then got changed and went back out and did the second half of my shift. So it was the most challenging day I think I've ever had as a postman.
Yeah. Well, people sort of like postman, postwomen. I mean, they're like real life heroes, aren't they? Because it's like without them, without these people, and it's like how do you get your records when you order something?
Yeah.
I mean, it's so easy to sort of like blame them when something is delayed, but then you've got to realize, they're doing their best. And
it's like train people. People who work for the railways and stuff. I always feel the same for them. It's so easy to blame them when something goes wrong, but 363 days of the year, everything goes right.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind. I mean, if I knew I mean, I would like to sort of like become a post woman or whatever, a post person, because
Yeah,
it's nice to sort of like deliver people's packages and making them happy and things
yeah,
like that. But I
it's
can't, because I think you need to have a car, don't you? I mean, you can't just sort of like. I know you walk and deliver all these
yeah,
things, but you also
yeah.
need a car, so and
Yeah, you
not
drive,
a
yeah,
truck.
yeah. But it's like I've certainly lost a lot of weight since I started becoming a postie, and you don't have to go to the gym, so you don't need a gym membership because your gym membership is your job. Basically, you're walking like 9-10 miles a day, so
Yeah.
it certainly keeps you in a decent shape. So otherwise,
Yeah, and have you been recognized doing your round? So it's like,
no,
have you been recognized as sort of like the drummer of the
no,
Flatmates? So it's sort of like,
no, no, I don't think so. But
no.
I've delivered to some interesting people. So delivered some flowers to the pastels. So I know, I,
Oh my god!
I, I know where they
You
are.
saw my god! Oh my god! There's Stephen Bastel with me.
Yeah, no, it was Katrina. Katrina was in, and it was some flowers addressed to Katrina, and also Keith as well. Keith from the Orchids. One of the rounds. He just lives about 5 minutes that way, just up the road. I was out
So
delivering one day, and I
yeah.
had a letter or a package, Keith Sharp, and I thought, yeah, that probably isn't the Keith Sharp, but knocked on the door, and Keith opens the door. So that was kind of quite interesting. So, and then
Maybe it's not for me because I'd probably be like, oh my god,
oh,
can I have a photography?
yeah, you can get your own done. Yeah, I mean, it's hard enough to get everything done in the time that the allocate is at the minute. You'd be stopping saying, "Oh, you get a picture here, sign this. I've got some records in my bag." Stuff like that.
As
Yeah,
long as the minute you see that, oh, I'm gonna go to Keith Sharp's house, I'm gonna bring the orchids. So like, oh,
yeah,
well,
just I'll put them in my. You got a big red sack with full of Orchids records and CDs, but yeah, no, that's quite funny when he opened the door and it actually was him. And then there's a Scottish comedian called Limmy. I don't know. Do you know Limmy? A guy called Limmy.
no,
No, he's yeah, Glaswegian comedian. Again, he lives
you, you deliver a
seconds from
book.
where Chris from where Keith lives as well. So yeah, obviously for data protection reasons, I can't disclose where any of these people live, but I can tell you that
No, of course
I've
not. No, of course, yeah.
delivered the news
But
and packages, but I
I,
can't tell you
I'm
where
gonna
they are.
ask you before because I'm really enjoying this chat, but I also wanted to ask you about your hobbies or things that because I've noticed on your Facebook page that you're a bus enthusiast or whatever you call it,
Yeah,
whatever you call it. But you love buses or
yeah.
all buses, not just any bus.
Yeah. Vintage buses are great, and
Yeah,
thankfully we've got something called the Glasgow Vintage Vehicle Trust, which is based in Brigton and East End. So they've got like a whole load of restored vehicles, not just
yeah,
buses. They've got cars, fire engines, and stuff. So every in the kind of summer half of the year, so the kind of better weather. Well, I say better weather in Glasgow. So from maybe March or April to October, they open the doors at the weekends, once a month at the weekends, and then they have other kind of events going on. So they'll invite you. You can go down, you can visit the garage, you can go in, and then they'll run some free services sort of in and out of town and up to Kelvin Grove or to the Riverside Museum. So you can just get on these buses and it doesn't cost you anything. You can get off and get on another one, and that's great. But it stems from a childhood. I grew up just being obsessed by Glasgow buses, and as a child, I don't know how much of this I should admit on on screen, but I I basically just learned the whole network uh, as a child. So it was 7 or 8, maybe it started. I would like, right, number one goes from there to there, and I would learn every street, and then the
really?
two goes from there to there, three from there to there, and I just learned the whole network. I just knew it off by heart, collected the timetables, read them religiously. So it was good. It kept me out of trouble. So the state we lived in was, as I say, was a very, very rough, poor part of Glasgow, and various people I went to school with have been shot, stabbed, murdered.
Okay.
There was a lot of glue sniffing at the time, back in the early
Oh,
'80s and stuff. So
yeah.
whereas other kids were doing that, I at least was keeping myself out of trouble by sitting reading bus
Like,
and
like
learning.
recording all these bus
Yeah,
times.
and just learning the network. But I remember my teachers found out about it at school, so I would occasionally get called up to a teacher who would call me into their office or the room and say, "Brian, I'm going to such and such a place at the weekend or something. How will I get there?" And I'd be, you get the 20 to George Square, and then from there you get the 41 out to Easter House. And so I'm sure, looking back on it, they weren't going. They were just actually, let's see if he knows. Like, just testing me, just sort of asking me these obscure, because the destinations they were asking me that they were going to were very, very obscure. But I could tell them exactly how they would get there and which bus would get them there and which stop they'd have to get off and stuff.
Do you still do that now?
No, I don't know. I mean, I know where they go and stuff, but yeah, I don't do it. I don't study. I literally I would sit and read it, and I had a big book, so I would write the routes out. So I'd write them out, and then it was a bit like painting the Forth Bridge. So by the time you finished it, you got from the number 1 to the number 100 and whatever. They suddenly, everything would have changed. Every 6 months they would change, and then you'd have to start a new book and then start all over again. But as I say, it kept me out of trouble. But as if you remember, going back to the Pop Fest, there was a guy up from Bristol, one of my friends, Johnny Collins. He's a very colourful, interesting character. He was on our table at the pop quiz. Probably looked a little bit like Lawrence from Felt and Denim. Johnny's a great musician in his own right. So he's in a band called Modesty Blaze and various other things he was involved in. So he made the connection. He said, drummers. And also, I used to be a goalkeeper as well. When I was a kid, when I played football, I was a goalkeeper. Drummers, goalkeepers, bus nerd enthusiasts. There's an element of madness there somewhere, isn't there? running through the songs. I was like, Johnny, you're probably absolutely right. So, yeah. But as I say, it kept me out of trouble, stopped me smoking, stopped me sniffing glue, stopped me getting involved in gangs and stuff like that, which everybody else seemed to be doing. All around me. So
exactly. A lot, it's highly recommended to do that instead. If you're a
young person, just get yourself involved in buses. You'll be absolutely sorted. But,
and another thing is jazz. You love going to I've seen you there a couple of times now. So it's like every last Sunday of the month in Glasgow. Next week. Called the Three Judges.
Yes.
Next week, the Three Judges. It's Michael Dean's quartet, or sometimes quintet.
It's sometimes 5. Various combinations of it. Yeah. But
I want to ask you, the drummer, Sandro, I think his name is. Sandro, yeah. He's amazing. Now, when you see him, I know there's a big difference between a jazz drummer and a rock drummer.
Yeah.
So when you go to their event or this sort of like jazz thing, do you look at Sandro and do you say,
yeah.
He's always like, I want to do this.
An absolute astonishment. Yeah, it's just like, how did you do that? How did he just does something, you think, right, how did he do that? And how did he get from there to there? And he just, think of it, he just never plays like a regular beat. He's every track that they do, or every sort of improvisation or whatever it is. Some of them are improvised. I think some of them are set sort of kind of standards and stuff. But the things he does, and he never does the same thing twice. And even within a song, he's playing about 14 different beats or different rhythms in the same section of a song. Whereas, Flatmates was just like 1, 2, 3, 4, completely different thing. No, I just watch in absolute wonderment and astonishment. That's incredible. And each of those musicians, you've probably seen it yourself. You might not necessarily like or understand exactly what they're doing, but you can appreciate what each person or each component has been put into. And the musicianship is just on an absolute another level. So I just love watching live music. I'm not particularly a massive jazz fan, but I just
I'm not, but I do. Yeah, I do love live music.
But if there's something on, and when they're not playing, something's one direct time. I met James and Elaine as well just the other week in Mono, and said, there's a jazz thing on across the road. Let's pop in there and go and see that. So we went and sat in there and a couple of drinks watching. Again, it's just like, not particularly my kind of thing, but just to actually watch a live band and watch musicians out there doing their thing. It's massively important, and you know that yourself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the Hackers who actually got me into sort of like watching the
Hmm.
Michael Dean's quartet or
Yeah,
quintet.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It was them, so it's really thankful to them, and
yeah.
it's
And
always nice. And also Mark Tranmere as well.
Mark,
Mark,
yeah, that's lovely. Yeah,
he
fantastic guy.
goes
Yeah,
there. Yeah.
absolutely. So hopefully they'll be there next weekend. I'll see them next
Next
weekend.
weekend, yeah.
But
I mean,
you
it's
know,
so like, pardon?
Michael played with the Orchids. Did you know that? Michael
I
Dean.
think, yeah, I think James told me, or was it Mark
Yeah,
Tranmere who said that to me before? Yeah.
yeah. I think it was at the 100 Club. I think he went down and he played a bit of
Oh my
sax.
god, yeah, I remember now.
Yeah,
I was actually there, but I don't.
yeah,
I wasn't the 100 club, but I'm so like, yeah, I remember. Yeah, that's
yeah.
right.
So that's
Okay. Well, I've got four more. I mean, I know we've been chatting for nearly 2 hours now, but I've
yeah.
got regulars, the standard questions that I ask. Is first
Okay.
is do you twirl? Because you mentioned like Clem Burke twirling
Yeah.
before, and it's like, so have you tried doing that when you
I think I might have tried.
drums?
Might have tried doing it when I was about 17, but then quickly realised no, don't, just don't do it. Leave it to Clem. Yeah, let Clem do it.
Leave it to the amazing Clem Burke.
Yeah.
So you haven't tried it with the Flatmates? Not
Not that I remember, no. And I don't think I'd had enough time because, as I said, the songs were so fast and so furious. It was just he would just continue, and it stopped.
Yeah.
Drink of water, quick blast of water, and then it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. We're off again. And there we go. But thankfully, most of the songs are quite short, so you could get.
Well, I don't think Sandra from the jazz band does that. I don't think jazz drummers do that.
No,
do
no, I've never seen him do that. No, I've seen him do countless other things that I can't comprehend how he does it, but I've never seen him do it.
Yeah. No. Next one is drumming heroes. Who are your drumming heroes?
Yeah, Clem Burke. Yeah, Clem, Pete Thomas, and the late, much missed John Bradbury from the Specials. So those were the kind of people I watched religiously as a child, and kind of learned how to play from those people.
And disasters like drumming. So when you were, especially the Flatmates, when you had to sort of like play really, really fast, have you ever had any sort of like accidents or drumming disasters?
No, when I was really when I first started playing with the Space Rat, I used to get real problems with blisters. And when I first started playing back with the Flatmates again, I got the same thing again. And I don't know if it's just the way I grip, because obviously I haven't been trained or taught properly how to do it. But I think it's just the way I maybe grip too hard or something. But the friction caused. There's a picture from New York when we toured. Flatmates went to the States. Post New York, I'd got like a blister that had been growing for the whole tour, and then it just popped. I remember it popping. I remember the precise moment it popped halfway through the set in New York, and it bled. And I remember a guy from the support band, Paul Crowley, and his drummer and Expert Alterations. So they're the band that we toured with in the States. He was down the front, and he said he saw it, literally every time I hit the snare drum, a spout of blood would just go flying. So he said he said I was wincing watching it because I can only imagine how much pain you went in, but I just had to keep, it's one of those ones, I've got to get through this, just got to get to the end of the song. Then it's try and plaster it up and try and tape it up. But there's a picture at the end and it just looks like this big bulbous burst blister on my finger. So I think worst disasters were just blisters.
Yeah. Well, aren't you glad that you don't get that anymore? Because you're not playing the drums now.
One other disastrous thing happened at a gig. It was a lonely tourist gig. We were playing in Glastonbury, not at Glastonbury Festival, but in Glastonbury. And it wasn't me. It was Paul related, but I'm sure he won't mind me telling this tale if he's listening, because I think he's told everybody anyway. And it's one of those ones that it's guitarist bassists should know this. Never put a pint glass on your amp. Never. Paul for some reason did. Started playing, kind of forgot about the pint, and I was playing, and I could see it, moving. And I thought it's going to go. There's nothing I can do. I tried to shout him. Oh, he's at the front singing, drumming. There's a wall of noise going on, and I'm just watching this glass go, and then it just goes, hits the ground, everything spills over plugs, and the whole place just blacks out, just like power cut. So it was like,
oh my god, no way!
So he just tripped the whole system. So we quickly, thankfully, Paul thought on his feet. He plays acoustic guitar. He says, right, just get out front, get into. So we went into the crowd and started playing in the crowd. So Chris, I think he would have played electrics. I don't know what he did. I don't know if he picked up on a spare acoustic. The two of them went out, started playing. I picked some shakers up and just went out. So we just stood in the middle of the crowd, just playing. So there just wasn't silence or nothing happening. Well, the poor engineer guy was running around trying to reset the switches and stuff. But I think we just basically blacked the whole pub, and there was a restaurant attached to it as well. We blacked the whole place out, I think.
Oh no!
But thankfully, by the end of the song, that we were out into the middle of the crowd to play and just kind of acoustically shake and do whatever, and just panicked. By the time we finished that song, I think they'd reset everything. We got back on stage and
everything's fine then.
Yeah, finished the rest of the set. But yeah, I just never put a pint glass anywhere near an amp.
I mean, sometimes I see, like, when you're in front of the stage, and sometimes I see some of the members of the audience are like putting their, drink on the stage. It was so like,
that's a recipe.
I wouldn't do that, no, because it could trip. It's all like a fall all those sort of like wires there.
Yeah, spill into somebody's very expensive pedal board. 500 Boss pedals on it or something.
Yeah, well, that's a good advice actually. But what I would like to ask you for the last question is the advice for aspiring drummers or aspiring musicians, apart from not putting the pint of the glass on.
I don't know. It's a difficult one really, because I don't really play anymore, and I've gone through periods of playing and periods of not playing. So I think I possibly just say, just whatever you want to do, whatever your vision is, just go and do it, and don't stop. Don't be like me. Don't stop, because you regret it. You look back and there's like 15 years where I didn't play, and then I started playing again and really enjoyed it. And then there's a period now where I'm not playing again. So just don't stop. Just do whatever you can, and really just get out there and do it. And if you're not doing it, go and support somebody who has done it, and support live music, and continue. Always support live music. Always go and see, especially now that nobody really buys, or not a lot of people buy physical material anymore, and artists find it harder and harder and harder to make any money. Support live music. Go and see bands. And if you're not doing that, make sure you're on stage and somebody's watching you.
Yeah, and God, I forgot what. Do you still own a drum kit?
Yeah, it's in the other room. It's still there.
Oh, yeah. Right. So you can still sort of like practice and sort of like.
Probably not where I am now, because you can probably see I'm in the attic of an old converted church. There are flats below me and flats through the wall from me, and I don't think anybody would appreciate it if I started battering the drums. And yeah, so it's in the other room. It's packed up. It's been packed up for a good few years now, but who knows? It might come out again. I hope it does.
Yeah. Well, some don't they? So like some drummers, don't they put like a tea towel so they so like muffle the noise?
Yeah, kind of dampen it. Yeah, but
it will still they will still hear it downstairs.
Yeah, I think the walls in this building are too thin, I think. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Brian. I really, or Archie. No, I'll call you Brian, because I know you as Brian anyway.
I have to take issue with what you said at the beginning, like, he wasn't going to do it. He wasn't going to do it. I wasn't. It just couldn't fit. Just when you tried to get me in a couple of times, it just wouldn't fit. So there's never any doubt I was going to do it. So.
Thank you so much. Because, like I said, when I met you, I just thought, he's a bit strict, and he looks like he's a bit aloof or something. But you're actually one of the friendliest people ever.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there was just something up that night. But as I remember it, that was one of the better gigs on that tour. It certainly wasn't. There was no huffing. I think probably just cold.
It's just the cold. And you probably just wanted to walk you.
Yeah, and then
get warm.
And with being the headline band as well, obviously we had to stand through and watch well, you didn't have to, but there was no there was nowhere else to go. It's not as if there was like a warm camper van outside, or a warm dressing room hidden mysteriously away in the White Hotel. It's just like you were in the venue, and you were in the venue for quite a long time. Obviously, you got to get there, you got to set up, you got to sound check, you got to watch the other
Yeah.
bands, and then you get to play. By which time, it, you know, oh, I, I can't. I've tried to explain it to people about how cold that night was. I think the first band with the Rickenbackers, they all played with the parkas on and hats. Like they were all playing. I knew I was going to get warm once I started playing, so I was in t-shirt. I think Martin was in t-shirt. Matthias might have been in a t-shirt, but everybody else was in jackets and huddled up. It's so cold, so cold. But
You couldn't feel your fingers, so like, how am I going to do this with you?
yeah, yeah, and I certainly, if I appeared aloof that night, I apologise. I don't know what it was.
Oh, it's all right.
Yeah,
Because I've seen you in Glasgow, and that
yeah,
time, like, we've been in that jazz, so like
yeah,
weekend, jazz
various
weekend.
gigs.
So,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I've seen you loads of times now, so I know that you're very friendly. So, um, are you gonna go and see the Soup Dragons on the
I'm hoping to.
2nd of November?
I hope to. Yeah, yeah. It depends. Work related. I need to see what my patterns are, because we get our patterns at sort of week by
Yeah,
week sort of thing. So I'm definitely get to the Bathers this coming Friday, and then I think the Soup Dragons is the following one, isn't it? Following Friday.
Thursday.
Is it
It's
Thursday?
the Thursday second.
It's the second. That should be fine then. Yeah. So I'll hopefully see
Yeah.
you there. Yeah, I'll see you there.
Yeah, I'll see you there. And thank you so much, Brian.
No problem.
I'm really glad that we've done this. It's probably the longest episode that I've ever done.
I was really worried that we wouldn't have enough to say. I thought, well,
No, I know.
what
I
have I
know
actually
you.
done? No, I spent 15-year gaps of not doing anything, so are we going to have enough things to talk about? So I'm glad we managed to get there. So
Yeah. And it actually ended up to be the longest one. So thank you so much. And
pleasure.
I'll see you in Glasgow
Couple of
in
weeks time.
not next week, in 2 weeks' time. Yeah.
2 weeks time.
All
Yeah.
right.
See you on.
And
Cheers, man.
such a brilliant CD collection there, and the vinyl collection, absolutely amazing. So thank you so much. See you soon.
See you in a couple of
Enjoy
weeks.
the rest of your weekend. So
Thank you.
bye,
You too.
Brian. See
Bye.
ya. All right.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us live. It's really, really good of you. So, like, it's almost like I'm talking or just chatting to a friend, which it's terms of like a drummer. But he really is a very, very nice person, very friendly. And thank you once again, Brian, for agreeing to do Ask the Drummer. And thank you to all of you, my dear friends, for joining us live. Next week is actually it's going to be another amazing drummer guest. He's from the Philippines. And I believe next week we're gonna have a change in clock. I think it's gonna be 1 hour later or something. But anyways, the difference, time difference, is gonna be 8 hours. The UK, Philippines, so it'll be 10 o'clock in the Philippines for next week, which is still 2 o'clock here in the UK. Hopefully, you can all join us then. So do keep an eye out for the guest announcement post on the Ask Drummer page. And as always, love music, love life, love, love, love drummers. Brian, thank you so much. You're absolutely amazing. And enjoy the rest of your weekend, everybody. And hope to see you all again next week. Bye for now. Bye.